Hello and welcome to the agenda. I am Ajay Kaul. In this program today we will discuss whether India and Pakistan are moving towards normalization of ties. After several years, an official delegation of Pakistan is in India. The delegation is here for the Indus water talks, which is supposed to be an annual affair but is being held after 2.5 years. So the two countries are once again talking and engaging after a period of intense tensions which at one point of time seemed to be escalating to an armed conflict. In this context, we will try to analyze and understand in the agenda today whether India and Pakistan are moving towards normalization of relations. We have with us retired diplomat, Ambassador Deepak Vora and geopolitical expert Mr. Jitendra Kumar Oja. But before we begin our conversation, have a look at this report.
2 years after India and Pakistan came to the brink of an armed conflict, the two countries are again talking on non-military bilateral issues. An official delegation of Pakistan is in India for talks under the framework of Indus Water Commission. The meeting of Commission is supposed to take place annually as per a decades-old bilateral understanding, but it is taking place after 2.5 years. The meeting was delayed because of heightened tensions provoked by the ghastly terror attack on CRPF convoy in Pulwama in Kashmir on February 14, 2019, in which 40 security personnel were killed. After the terror attack by Pakistan-based Jaish-e-Mohammed, India carried out an airstrike at a major camp of the outfit in Balakot in Pakistan on February 26. The next day, Pakistan tried to carry out air attack at India, but the attempt was foiled. However, tensions ran high and threatened to blow up into an armed conflict. The India-Pakistan border became volatile with repeated exchange of fire and shelling across the line of control provoked by the Pakistani side. However, the two countries apparently held back-channel talks, which resulted in an agreement between the militaries of both sides last month that they would be strictly adhering to a 2003 agreement on border ceasefire. Subsequently, Pakistan Prime Minister Imran Khan and the country's all-powerful army chief, General Qamar Bajwa, expressed readiness to have peace with India. So, since the meeting of Indus Water Commission is taking place against that backdrop, questions arise whether the two countries are taking steps towards a thaw in their relations. Bureau Report.
Now let's welcome our guests, Ambassador Vora and Mr. Oja. Welcome to the program, both of you. So let me begin with Ambassador Vora. As you must be aware, official delegation of Pakistan is in India. It's after a big gap. And they are talking about, both countries are talking about Indus water, related issues, which is actually an annual affair, but taking place after 2.5 years. So how do you see this development when we take it in the backdrop of recent ceasefire, agreement between two countries to adhere to the ceasefire on border?
Thank you very much, Mr. Kaul. Always a pleasure to learn from you and from my colleague, Mr. Oja, whose knowledge of Indo-Pakistan affairs is unrivaled. Thank you very much. We all know that this is a 61-year-old business which was mediated by the World Bank. We have kept our part, Pakistan hasn't. One thing that we have to very clearly understand, sir, I have several river systems, as you know. I have the Himalayan system, I have the peninsular system, and now I'm even talking about interlinking of rivers. We've just signed the agreement to link.
But Ambassador, I'll come to that. I'll come to that later. But now
let me come in a moment.
No, right.
Let me complete this.
Yeah.
As far as we are concerned, I have enough water in terms of inner rivers. He has only the Indus River system.
Ambassador, please.
And sir, if they are meeting now, if you think this reflects normalization,
yes,
I'm afraid not at all. We are having a meeting of the Indus Water Commissioners, the Indus Treaty Commissioners. In no way, sir, if these fellows get together, can it be construed as normalization? I only quote what our Prime Minister had said, sir, after the 2016 Uri attack. Blood and water cannot flow together. Till Pakistan behaves, nothing is going to happen, sir. Period.
But these steps, I'll ask this question to Mr. Oja. Are these steps towards normalization or thaw in relations?
Look, this gentleman who has come for Indus Water, this thing, Pakistani Indus Water Commissioner, I don't think he has any stay. This is a kind of, as you said, annual affair. Only in 2020, because of Corona, this talk could not be held. Otherwise, this is an annual affair. You have to see two things I would like to point out. Because
No,
it is we who are in a dominant position.
No, it was to be held in 2019.
I'm sorry, I've lost your voice.
Can you hear me?
It is we who are in dominant position, and it depends on us. Despite war, despite armed conflicts, isn't it? West has been saying, oh, India, Pakistan have not fought over waters. It is entirely because of decency and civility of India that we have not subjected their civilian population to any hardship. Had there been this prerogative available with Pakistan, we don't know what would have happened. So right now, Pakistan needs this water, and it is still graciousness on part of India that we have welcomed their delegation and this talk will be held. And you must see that even when, my first research paper I wrote when I was doing my Master of Philosophy in Diplomacy was on Indus Water Treaty. This was in 1989, 90 in JNU. We know that how much concession has been made by India even during that point of time, because the river basin system, the water this has been developed initially in the Pakistani part of Punjab. So right now we should see it only as an act of graciousness and decency on part of India, which we have always displayed. And Pakistani military establishment and Pakistani power cartel, which is ruling that country, they have considered it as a part of our weakness. We should rather make it very clear to people of Pakistan, we harbor no ill will towards normal civilians of Pakistan, but their ruling establishment, they have been using that territory. They have been using everything to wage this clandestine war against India. And in the process, I've always maintained on your channel, because they are the biggest patrons of organized crime. So I hope that this government continues with its decisive and robust response to Pakistani machinations in this part of the world.
Mr. Oja, I wanted to ask, actually, my bigger question is, are these steps towards the thaw? Because as you mentioned about our government position has been terror and talks cannot go together. So now we are here welcoming a Pakistani delegation, which was supposed to be held, that these talks were to be held in 2019 but could not take place because of Pulwama and related tensions. So now we are back to engaging with Pakistan in talks. So are these steps towards...
No, sir.
This has to, we have to see over a longer period of time.
Yeah.
Because these talks are of an entirely different nature. And as I said, the talks are being held by technocrats. These are on mere mechanism of working out this Indus Water Treaty provisions. So I don't think these talks have any political dimension at all. It is only, as I mentioned earlier, it is only a kind of gesture on part of India to let civilian population in Pakistan know that we harbor no ill will towards them. As far as water arrangement is concerned between India and Pakistan, these modalities will continue as it has been happening. These talks have been going on even at the height of conflicts and confrontations, Ajayji. This treaty has continued and withstood all tensions between India and Pakistan. So I don't think, anything extraordinary in this.
Right. So, Ambassador Vora, you wanted to say something before I ask you something?
No, I just wanted to say, sir, that as Mr. Oja has so brilliantly put it across, if we are talking to the Indus Water Commissioners from the Pakistani side, by no stretch of the imagination can this be construed to be a move towards normalization of relations. Of course, we've been talking to them in the UN. Of course, we've been talking to them when their fellows come here for medical treatment. What does that mean? That we are normalizing? Sir, till Pakistan gets over its obsession, its self-perception that it cannot be a junior partner of India, must have parity at all costs. Remember that fool who used to say, we will eat grass but we will get the atom. Well, he got the atom bomb, now they eat grass. He got the priorities wrong. Till they get over that, what is the possibility of talking with Pakistan? Even the Tulbul project on the Jhelum River, they had previously suspended in response to Pakistan's objections. We took a decision to restart. The goodwill has to be on, sir. There is an expression that says it takes two to tango. So far, it has been all from our side. I don't think we should be into this. It's almost like Mao's style. We were normalizing relations with China. Somebody said Mao's the Indian budget affair. Everything is between our two countries. Not at all, sir. There are negatives that originate from Pakistan. and they overwhelm the positives that originate from India.
Right. So why I was asking this question is against the backdrop of recent talk by General Bajwa, Army Chief, who is all powerful man in Pakistan, like extending peace overtures and all those things that we want peace and all that. Let us bury the past. So in that context, and this talks are taking place 1 month after the two countries or militaries of the two countries, or rather I'll say Pakistan, agreed to adhere to the 2003 ceasefire on the border. So I am
Sir,
taking the
if
entire picture in view.
Yeah, sir, if this offer by this so-called Pakistani general who knows nothing about war, who knows nothing about weapons, who knows nothing about fighting, other than that is a great general. If this fellow had made this offer before the Chinese decided to disengage, I would have said, well done. But now that he is told by the Chinese, if the Indians divert their military and trash the hell out of you, don't count on us. Therefore, the timing itself is so suspect, I would not believe a word of what this joker says.
So
they are coming to us now because they are under pressure. They are under pressure economically. The FATF is going to meet in June. It has devastated Pakistan's economy. $30-40 billion has been the loss to them. They are under pressure medically, sir, because the Chinese vaccine that even their so-called prime minister took, he contracted the virus immediately after that. They are under pressure militarily, politically, the system is fragile. What do you expect him to do? So he wants now to show the world that he's in a position to normalize with India. Of course he's not. No one will fall for this kind of nonsense. We are calling their bluff.
Right. So, Mr. Oja, do you agree with Ambassador Vohra's views that there should be no credence should be given to whatever Bajwa says?
Absolutely. Mr. Vohra, Ambassador Vohra, with all his experiences, he knows these things far better. This is what happened in Kargil. Our Prime Minister went by Wagah border by bus to Lahore, and what did we get in return? Pakistan cannot be trusted at all. Fact is that, this is, as I've always maintained, this is an artificial state created by the West who fulfill their strategic aspirations or ambitions or designs in this region. And they've created a kind of small cartel. That cartel has been more loyal to their Western masters. Now that cartel has shifted its loyalty to China. They have no commitment at all to Pakistan. And we have been extremely ambivalent. We have been trying to placate them throughout. Now, for the first time, we are seeing a very robust and strong approach on this issue. We have to continue with this. As long as this kind of political dynamic remains in Pakistan, peace with Pakistan is impossible, Ajay. I think that we have to rather change our entire approach. We should see that this kind of thing is completely moved away, rather kicked out, this kind of political structure. We have a normal civilian democracy, I would say. Firstly, secondly, all these terror camps, these have to be done away with. Thirdly, I would say this radical propaganda, all these people have to be not only put behind bars, but even their school syllabus has to change, the kind of hatred they are teaching towards India. Do you think it's possible I think for the next 20, 30 years, it's impossible for an average Pakistani to live in peace, not only with Indians, but even normal, peaceful Muslims, anywhere in the world. So all these things have to change. That has to be the topic of discussion and not, what they've been harping on Kashmir or anything, because none of the Kashmiris, they want to stay with, or rather, they have very soft corner towards Pakistan. I see that we have to strengthen our internal mechanism, and it is our responsibility to see that there's a normal government and a very normal life is available to people of Pakistan.
Yeah, so Ambassador Vohra, so we should not be lulled into complacency but by whatever Bajwa says, right?
So Bajwa is a bird of the same feather as his predecessors. When our Prime Minister, Mr. Oja pointed out, went off to Lahore and these guys were planning Kargil. I mean, they do it all the time. They have a blind, mad quest for parity with India. So let me remind you, they talk about self-determination and whatever else they should talk about for the wonderful people of Jammu and Kashmir state where you come from, Mr. Kaul. You remember that in 2003, the J&K State Assembly had passed a unanimous resolution for the abrogation of the treaty. And they passed it again, I think, 4 or 5 years ago. They said, listen guys, when you decided on this, nobody asked us. So Pakistan keeps saying they have a right to self-determination. Well then please listen to what the people of Jammu and Kashmir are saying. Please treaty make a request to us. We don't want it because the people of Jammu and Kashmir say we don't want it. This is a bunch of jokers, a bunch of has-beens, a bunch of lunatics who run Pakistan. Who's going to take them seriously, sir? Please, I don't think this kind of stuff that Bajwa or his cohort say is worth even 1 second of APN's time, sir. It's absolute nonsense.
So at the same time,
Sorry to use strong language.
Yeah, at the same time, Ambassador Vora, there are reports. There is one report, in fact, that talks about UAE is mediating between India and Pakistan, and that is what is bringing India and Pakistan maybe again to the talks dialogue table.
All I can say is when there used to be a president of the United States, I jokingly refer to him as McDonald Trump, others say Donald Trump, and he has volunteered to mediate. And then I can only repeat what the Prime Minister said, आपको तकलीफ करने की जरूरत नहीं है, हम खुद फैसला करें. We have never accepted mediation.
But Ambassador,
we'll deal with it ourselves.
Ambassador, I may point out that India has not denied that report so far.
That doesn't matter.
It's
Sir.
only
People make all kinds of claims.
It's a day old story, but India, government has not denied it.
You don't have to deny everything.
Yeah, I'll go to Mr. Oja about this report. How credible do you think that report is?
Zero.
How credible do I see?
That report about UAE mediating between India and Pakistan to bring
Look,
them.
not mediating. I don't think as my very esteemed senior colleague told, the question of mediation is ruled out. If they are trying to facilitate something, it's a different matter. But talks are always good. Talks must go on at every point of time, I would say, not directly. Sometimes we are not engaging directly. It is indirect kind of thing. If these are going on, it's perfectly all right. But we have to see what is the issue that we are going to discuss. And in my opinion, and the opinion of all of us who have been watching these things, we believe that what we are going to discuss is terror camps in Pakistan and how Pakistan is going to dismantle this, how Pakistan is going to stop funding and providing support and succor to all these radical elements, how Pakistan is going to withdraw from organized crime. If these are the issues on which talks are going to be held, I am sure all sane-minded people, right-thinking people, they should facilitate whatever they can do. But this does not mean there could be summit-level talks or there could be complete normalization and this kind of engagement. I don't think that is required. That must not happen. Pakistanis have been trying to, get on an even pedestal with us, or people have been blessed always because of their ignorance. And sometimes I would say underhand agenda, they have been trying to hyphenate India and Pakistan, whereas that should have been rejected right from the beginning. We have tolerated it for far too long. This time we should make it very clear what we stand for and what Pakistan stands for, and how important it is for not only us, but for entire peace and stability in this region and beyond, that Pakistan is, I would say, humanized. Pakistan is respected. Pakistan is rather restructured and transformed. And we have to, of course, we have to build our own internal capacities to do that and see that this Pakistani sponsored covert war is stopped. That is the issue on which we have to hold discussion. And I don't think there is any other issue on which discussion is possible. And if at all they are talking about so-called Kashmir, Bajwa in the same report had said, we have to see that how and when they can return this
conducive
Pakistan and Pakistani occupied Kashmir. That is the subject on which discussion has to take place. Because they have been trying to alter demographic composition in that area. And there have been large number of movements and protests. Right now, we are watching, and I am being approached from people all over. There have been protests. People are seeking integration with India.
Right.
That is the issue on which they have to hold discussion. They have been partially, trying to come out with this bogey of UN resolution and not even talking about it. It is they who are supposed to withdraw from it. And West had been very covertly supporting them because of their own interests. But now things have changed completely. The whole ecosystem has changed. Even China has become reluctant to some extent over the last few weeks, as you've seen. So I don't think, the equation remains what it was 2 months back.
So, Ambassador Vora, when we talk about General Bajwa, when he talked about peace, at the same time he said that onus is on India for taking the peace steps, and there should be conducive atmosphere, whatever it means in Kashmir. So, how do you see that?
Ask him what it means. Sir, कहावत नहीं है हमारी उल्टा चोर कोतवाल को डांटे. यही तो ये कर रहा है सर. Pakistan is in blind rage. This is the rage of poverty. This is the rage of teeming multitudes of angry, lumpen, faithful young males predominantly from the teeming slums of Karachi. Sir, inke paas, the issues are overpopulation. The issue is under-education. The issue is unemployment. This blindness of jealousy as India outpaces it in every sphere, every day. It even calls into question the two-nation theory, as many Pakistanis say. Desperate to be considered equal to India, they want parity.
want to get every concession that India gets. आपको याद है जब वो न्यूक्लियर अरेंजमेंट हुआ तो हमें भी ये चाहिए. अगर हिंदुस्तान कहता मुझे बहुत अच्छा लगता है पानी पीना, हमने भी पीना. अगर हिंदुस्तान कहता मुझे जहर बहुत अच्छा लगता है, हमने भी जहर खाना. What kind of a nation is this? You know, they seek relevance through aggression and nuisance value. Let me tell you something, sir. Mr. Oja, I'd appreciate your comment on this. I've been observing something very interesting. They have a clown who masquerades as their foreign minister. बड़े अच्छे सैडल रो के कपड़े पहनता है, बड़ी अंग्रेजी बोलता है. उसको कोई कहता है कि मिस्टर मिनिस्टर चलिए लेट्स हैव ब्रेकफास्ट. You know we have nuclear weapons. Mr. Minister, lovely weather today. You know we have nuclear weapons. Mr. Minister, can I take you for a drive in my car? You know we have nuclear weapons. ये क्या रोज बोलता है? Right. I have nuclear weapons. I have nuclear. इसका मतलब क्या है?
No, they have nuclear weapons, but they don't have vaccines.
Nobody denies that. What has that got to do?
No, but they can't manufacture vaccines.
Exact. और वो जब चीन की वैक्सीन लेते हैं, उनका सो कॉल्ड प्राइम मिनिस्टर बीमार हो जाता है, उनको वो बीमारी लग जाती है. So what I'm trying to say is that Pakistan seeks relevance, sir. You know this better than I do.
Right.
Through aggression and its nuisance value.
So let me,
unless it overcomes that obsession, I don't see any hope for people.
So, Ambassador, we have a few minutes left. So, I want to talk about this Indus Water Treaty, which is also a, bad treaty for India actually. It was badly negotiated, if I can say. It's lopsided towards Pakistan and India gets nothing. How do you say? What do you say on this?
Well, absolutely, sir. 1960 made India's first Prime Minister, very large-hearted, very generous, wonderful person. He gave away a lot. We've given away a lot, sir. You might even recall that Puja Mahatma Ji also was very upset that we were not giving Pakistan whatever its share was of the foreign exchange reserves, of weapons, etc., etc. All these things, we've always been totally correct. वो हमारी परंपरा है.
Too generous.
की परंपरा अलग है.
Too generous.
Very generous. Absolutely.
Too
right.
generous.
And they take too generous, and they take this generosity to be weakness.
Right.
Let me just say that after the 2019 Pulwama attack, the then Minister of Roads, Water Resources, Nitin Gadkari, has stated all water presently flowing into Pakistan in the three eastern rivers which are ours will be diverted to Punjab, Haryana and Rajasthan for various uses. Pakistan में आग क्यों लग गई, sir? Do you know that the Indus River, and Mr. Oja knows this, 100 kilometers before it goes into the Arabian Sea, it dies.
Yeah.
And so the saline water of the Arabian Sea comes in. That was the bread bowl. The bread basket of Pakistan had been devastated because these guys had no idea. Here is a country like India which has overcome these challenges. We are willing to share with them, but they will not agree. Their blind hostility towards India, sir. Forget about it, sir. Nothing is going to emerge till Pakistan reinvents itself as a responsible member of the international community.
Right. So, Mr. Oja, when we talk about the lopsidedness of the treaty, all the three rivers of J&K, Pakistan has the entire right. So, because of that, we have not been able to build dams or maybe power stations, because of which Jammu and Kashmir is lacking in power. So, what kind of treaty was, signed?
I think
it needs to be revisited. What do you say?
It has to be revisited. There is no doubt that they cannot have objections whenever we build dams, etc. Because that time, situation was such that, everywhere, whenever a river system is developed or irrigation system is built, there's a way, it is built closer to the sea. When this, in the Pakistani Punjab, most of the developments and canal network had already been built, whereas nothing had happened over here. So that's why it's time that we revisit the whole thing. And as pointed out by Ambassador, generosity should not be treated as weakness. It's not that it has to be a one-way traffic. We are absolutely within our rights to protect legitimate interests of our people, and we need to develop irrigation as well as power system within our own part of the country, in our country. So I think this treaty has to be revisited, and as I said, a larger approach also has to change, because that time we were trying to be absolutely correct, trying to be generous to Pakistanis, thinking, that this issue of partition was incorrect. They're saying we are very nice to them, and at some point of time, there will be change of heart. It doesn't happen. Partition is a reality. But having said that, we should be very, very concerned as far as normal civilian population is concerned. But we must explore the bluff of this Pakistani military syndicate and all these groups who are ruling over there, both on the issue of their so-called nuclear weapons, etc. With 8th generation warfare, even your nuclear weapons can be rendered useless. And the way Pakistan is going, rest assured that these are stolen weapons, and this stolen technology cannot hold them in good stead for too long. So that is one thing. And secondly, our entire approach in every issue has to change, and we should be more proactive. As I said, be very concerned, very considerate to the people of Pakistan, but at the same time we have to be very tough as far as this ruling establishment and all this nonsense that onus stays in India, etc. All these things have to be dismissed with disdain.
So before we conclude, I want to refer to the generosity which still persists. So one of the agendas of this current talks is that Pakistan has objection to some project on Chenab River which flows through J&K. So generosity continues. So we are entertaining that objection and holding talks. So what do you say, Mr. Ojha?
I think we have to very clearly tell them that, look, these were the circumstances in which this treaty was signed. This is a requirement. This is a reality. Sorry, you are free to raise your this thing, but we are also free to dismiss that.
Right.
We have not surrendered our right to build those dams, by the way.
Right. So, Ambassador Vora, you want to make... Yeah.
I just wanted to come in very quickly that there was this Nile Water Treaty signed between Sudan and Egypt in 1929, revised in 1959. Now, the Ethiopians have built the Great Renaissance Dam on the Blue Nile, which meets the White Nile in Khartoum. Sudan then becomes the Nile going to Egypt. Egypt says, थोड़ा सा पानी लोगे आप, मैं ये कर दूंगा, वो कर दूंगा. The Ethiopians turned around and said, भाई ये तो मेरी नाइल है, आपकी तो दूसरी वाली नाइल है, तो सुडान से आती. And people go mad when it comes to water. They don't even need it, but they are threatening war. And somebody should tell the Pakistanis, yeah, go back to school, read some books, and then come back and talk to us. You don't have the strength to take on India. You have no locus standi in the matter. Go home. Go back and read and learn and come.
But we have to first be assertive and be less generous.
Of course we are.
Be less generous, I guess.
We are very assertive, sir. ये सरकार बहुत तेज है. आप जैसे सपूत है भारत के, you will highlight these issues. As Mr. Ojha, India is proud of her children like you.
Yeah, we'll try keep raising such issues. But the program time today is over. Thank you both of you for participating.
Very good.
This is all in the agenda today. Thanks for watching. I'll be back with another important topic tomorrow. Till then, goodbye.